All right, so welcome everyone. This is episode 3 of the Tiny Pulpit. I'm Dr. Betterson, and I have here in front of us today a special treat. My longtime childhood friend, Mr. Anthony Davis. Today happens to be his birthday, so this is going to be a special edition. We're going to get a double whammy. He's fired up, and he's going to help us unpack some spiritual truths. So again, welcome, Anthony. I appreciate you agreeing to come on, sir. And without further ado, I'm not going to belabor the point. We'll just go ahead and jump into it, and the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, I'm glad to be here. My good friend, Dr. John Bettison, known you 40 years, bro. So it's all
That's
good, all love.
that's a long
My
time.
pleasure to be here and to share. And we got 10 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna try to do what we do in 10 minutes. And we're gonna look at the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21. We're gonna look at verses 1 through 4. I'm using the English Standard Version, and I think one of the points I want to make is that in the 21st century, 2025, we want to focus on ministry that is not so much self-centered, self-absorbed, self-aggrandizing. We live in a time where people are suffering. They are going through all kinds of hardships, financial hardships, illnesses, and people are downtrodden, people are disenfranchised, and we got to start to meet the needs of people. And sometimes ministry can be, focused on a lot of other things, more material centered things. And I had been a pastor for some 16 years. I know a lot about ministry. I'm no longer pastoring, but a lot of pastors are very good. Some pastors are really about that money. You know what I'm saying? They about that money, and they about the aesthetics of ministry. They're about the flash, the superficial, but we want to talk about things more meaningful. So let's jump right into Luke 21, verses 1 through 4. Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the offering box, and he saw a poor widow put in two small copper coins. And he said, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for all they all contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty put in all she had to live on. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I've been in church most of my life, and this particular portion of scripture has been used to inspire people to give for offering, right? We want to give like this woman, she gave all she had, right? But I don't think Jesus is necessarily commending the woman for giving all she had. I don't think that's what's happening here. So again, verse 3, and he said, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, right? He's illustrating something. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. Like she has nothing else. So to fully understand the text, you can't just look at that. You got to go a few verses above. So look at chapter 20, verses 46 through 47 to really get the full context. He says, and in the hearing of all the people, he said to his disciples, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love greetings in the marketplaces and the best seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at feasts, right? He's talking about the clergy that like to floss, like to look good, like to wear nice clothes and, be the man. And verse 47 is critical. He says, who devour widows' houses. That's
Mm.
important. And for pretense make long prayers, they will receive the greater condemnation. Now he's saying that they do all this flossing, all this superficial stuff. They want the best places, and these same people they devour widows' houses. So that gives full understanding of chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. That how do they devour houses? By manipulating these widows to give all that they have to live on. So this is what happens, and we have to be very careful because clergy is very powerful. People believe clergy. When you say, "Thus saith the Lord," or God says, people believe preachers behind the pulpit. And if the preacher tells them to give, a lot of people won't care about what they don't have. They believe they're doing God's will to give everything they have, even though it may mean their rent, even though it might mean, their well-being is jeopardized. And I don't think God has ever asked us to do that. And this is the problem. So when you look at the same book in Luke chapter 19, just a couple chapters, verses 45 through 46, um, it says, and he entered the temple, right? This is the place of worship. And he began to drive out those who sold, right? And saying to them, it is written, my house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers, right? So, and I think Matthew gives greater detail, and we all are familiar with Jesus cleansing the temple and the fact that they were using the temple as a means to make money. So they were buying and selling, and they had some transactional things in regards to currency exchange, and they were profiting off of this. So they made a business out of the place of worship. And Jesus wasn't having it. And this passage doesn't illustrate that, but Jesus went and got himself some cords, wrapped it up, started moving some tables, and started beating some people's behinds. Why? Because they were exploiting the people for money. And so in one passage, it talked about the fact that he beat these people, drove them out the temple, and then he began to heal the sick and tend to the needs of those who were downtrodden and disenfranchised. That is what ministry is all about. It's about meeting the needs of people. It's about blessing people. And I just think that a lot of times, man, I have a lot of preacher friends, and it's not their fault, some of the stuff that they do. Um, it's what they used to. It's what they've grown up under. It's culture. It's something that they've come up through. They've never questioned it. And I think what's important about what you're doing, my brother, is in this space, giving people an opportunity to think critically and share truth, man. Um, and let's digest. Let's unpack. Let's not just take what somebody tells you. Use this opportunity to unpack what people are teaching us and saying, "Hey, man, is this really in line with uh, what God is saying?" So in church we love aesthetics, we
Mhm.
love outward presentation, and I've been a pastor, and a lot of pastors, we love our buildings, we love our facilities, and in many instances we want bigger facilities,
Yeah. Yeah.
we want bigger things, we want a bigger space, and spaces at a premium, and we want to do all these things. And a lot of times you would think with all these buildings and spaces and facilities, you go around these neighborhoods and nothing happening. There's no changes. You don't see life changing. You don't see socioeconomic things changing. You don't see the life. I've passed a church recently in New York City that's been a staple of the church community, and it's in the hood and it's been around for a long time. It's got a lot of space, a lot of famous pastor,
Mhm.
and I was around that church, man, and a lot of people were doing meth
Wow.
around the
Wow.
building,
Wow.
really
Wow.
looking bad. And it's like this church has been here for years and years and years
Yeah.
and hasn't made that kind of impact
Right.
with the community, right?
Right.
So a lot of times we think the building, God is enamored with our buildings and
Yeah.
our spaces. And look, we need spaces. I'm not saying we don't need spaces. I'm not saying we don't need facilities. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get us to think a little bit differently about how God thinks. And I think we're going to look at our last portion. We got a couple of minutes. Luke 21,
Hmm.
looking at verses 5 through 6, I believe. And while some of were speaking of the temple, right, his disciples, how it was adorned with noble stones and offerings, right? So the disciples were enamored with the appearance of the temple. It's like, Jesus, take a look at how wonderful this building is, how it's adorned, and how it looks, and all of this, and wow, and he says, well, before we get into that, the word there for offering, right? And while, again, verse 5, and while some were speaking of the temple, how it was adorned with noble stones and offerings,
Hmm.
he added. Now
Hmm.
let's tie that back to the widow, right?
Hmm.
Offerings, right? The word there in the Greek for offering is anathema,
Mm.
right? Anathema in its original, when it meaning means offering given to a deity, right? It's the original meaning of the word anathema. But as time progressed, the meaning changed and it came to mean something devoted to destruction.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Anathema. And we've seen that, like I think Paul said, come quickly, Lord. And if like people don't believe in Jesus, let them be anathema, like devoted to
Wow.
destruction.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So,
Hmm.
so again, they were looking at the space of the temple, and they were doing with noble stones and offerings, right?
Yeah.
So Jesus says, and he said, as for these things that you see, the days will come when there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown
Mm,
down. So
mm.
y'all love this building, you'll love the how it looks, you'll love uh, all the flashy stuff, the lights and the big screens, the television screens and the various things in there. Jesus is not quite as impressed with
Right.
our theater
Right.
as we are. And so what he is saying is that again, it's still tied to that chapter 21. It's all contextual that these types of things Jesus is not as he doesn't look at as being very important. That what is
Right.
important is loving our
Right.
neighbor and taking care of those who are in need.
That's
The
right.
least of these.
That's
Uh,
right.
Matthew chapter 24 talks about those who are in prison and those who are hungry and those. And I just think we need to focus on that. And so we have people that are poor. And one of the things that when they talk about putting that money at the apostles' feet, if you look at that Acts chapter 4, they weren't putting that money at the apostles' feet to make no apostle rich. The apostles distributed that money to those who had need.
Right.
And that's the thing. We sort of
Yeah.
distort these texts.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
need to revisit these texts and
Right.
really begin to understand context and apply it appropriately because I tell you, we're going in the wrong direction. And judgment will begin with the house of God. And
Hey.
I think church in the American context needs to be reimagined. So, brother, I thank you for this space
Yeah. Yeah.
to share
Yeah.
10 minutes. Love the tiny pulpit, man. And we can hit it and get some good stuff in here. So I'm looking forward, man, to seeing you grow with this and
Yeah. Yeah.
being a part of it in the future.
Yeah.
These types of things, man, we gotta love, man. People out here need us. They need Jesus. They need
That's
what
right.
Jesus can do for them. And
That's right.
I think
I
that's all I got,
appreciate
brother.
it. Hey, you have plenty. Trust me, my friend. I mean, let me just say, I don't want to step on your message, and I do not assume to do that at all. Your message stands on its own. That was beautiful, perfect, inspirational. I mean, there was even some exegesis in there. I mean, brother, you looking at the original language, the
Yeah,
Greek. I mean, those are the things that help believers really understand, to your point, the context, right?
yeah,
What's happening in those times, and what's before the passage, what's after, not just the one passage that you lift out of context to fit your narrative, right? So that's important, right? My wife and I are big fans of well, obviously the whole word, but one account or one passage in particular says, line upon line, here a little, there a little, right? Precept upon precept. That's the whole God. You got to take the whole counsel, right? You can't just, right? Because it's all over. Isaiah, Daniel, right? Right? Ephesians, Galatians, all
yeah.
over the place, right? So that's, I mean, it's special. Today's your birthday, so I appreciate you bringing the thunder and giving us sharing time with us on your special day. I appreciate it, man. And I miss the friendship in person, but distance, it doesn't change a thing. I mean, it's like we picked up right where we were
Right where we left off. It
years
never
ago.
ends.
I love it.
Never ends, man.
So, hey, I appreciate your time, brother. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. And again, this is great stuff, man. And we can chop it up afterwards. But I appreciate that, man. That's episode 3 of the Tiny Pulpit. I love it.
Yeah,
And Mr.
man. My
Anthony
pleasure.
Davis,
You know
thank you,
what it
sir.
is.
All right.
All right, brother.